At your moment of death, you don't think about money. You don't think about what you drive, what you do. You think about your family and how you live your life. That's what I thought about.
Friends, today's show is a particularly special one. It's a story of grit, perseverance, inspiration, and a commitment to serve others. It's a story that, to me, exemplifies courage and the never quit spirit.
Welcome to the most exciting adventure of your life. Welcome to a new way of living. And welcome to the Fierce Planet Adventures podcast. Hi, I'm Casey.
And I'm Andy.
We're on a mission to inspire and guide 1 million people to live a life of purpose, passion, and self-mastery through the 5 mountains of cutting-edge development.
6 years ago, our guest nearly died after being run over 3 times by a fleeing suspect driving a GMC Denali SUV. Casey and I met Dallas Police Sgt. Ed Lujan in Chattanooga, Tennessee during the eastern leg of Carry the Load National Relay this past May. And I rucked alongside Sergeant Lujan, and I had the opportunity to hear his story. And his story inspired me, and I believe it'll inspire you as well. Welcome, Ed.
How you doing? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
You're very welcome.
Very welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I'm sure you have a lot to be grateful for in your life, but why don't you tell us what you're grateful for today?
Just for living another day. I have this saying, you live for today, not for tomorrow. So I just try to live my day to its fullest.
Nice. Ed, when we were rucking for Carry the Load, you were sharing your story with me. What struck me was your grit and your positivity. Even though the violent assault you experienced in 2015 was life-altering, it's not where your story begins. You've been serving as an officer for 26 years. What drew you to law enforcement?
Well, it's kind of a funny story how it started. I used to be a teacher at one time, and I came down here for a job fair. And this is back in the day where you actually had to fill out an application to apply for a job. So I'm originally from West Texas, which is El Paso, Texas, and I came down to, find a job up here in the Dallas Metroplex. And when I was filling out the application, my pen ran out of ink. Well, the table next door was the Dallas Police Department, and I asked to borrow their pens. And he said, well, if you come and talk to us, we'll give you a pen. I said, well, I don't know anything about law enforcement. I've never taken any criminal justice classes. He said, well, we'll teach you everything you need to know. I said, well, I've never shot a gun. He goes, we'll show you how to shoot a gun. And then that kind of convinced me. And ever since I've been here. So it's been a great career.
Nice. So as it was meant to be. So what was your life before this assault? Were you pretty active, hitting the gym every day, or what was your life like?
Yeah. So, I've endured some struggles in my life, some injuries. I've had some forms of cancer. It's just a typical life of a cop. But for the most part, I've always stayed active. I've had some friends die when they were real young, and it was all about eating right and exercising and doing all the things you're supposed to do and not smoking. And and being an officer, you want to be in a good condition because you just don't know that time where you actually need to use that endurance or skill to protect yourself or others. So I've always just been on top of it, had that cardiovascular and strength training. And I used to do a lot of CrossFit before. When CrossFit first started, I was really into that. And actually, that's one of the things that the doctor said that kind of saved my life, that I didn't have any what you call diabetes or high blood pressure. So that actually kind of helped me stay in shape. So
Nice. In my life, I know several police officers from different size departments all across the country that I've worked with in various positions. And, one of the things that happens sometimes is when you're in the situation where day after day, you're experiencing people in crisis, people going through really hard times, people being violent. It has a tendency to alter people's perspectives and maybe even make them a little bit jaded. What was your perspective before this assault? Were you pretty well balanced, or did you have a pretty positive outlook in life?
Well, it's funny you say that. At that moment, maybe about that time in my life, I was living I wasn't, I don't want to say the best person, the worst person, but I was just going through a lot of struggles in my life. Um, some are personal. Uh, I'll share this with you. I found out, well, my only son came out that he was gay. And it wasn't about him being gay, it was about how will society treat uh, a young man that's only 10 years old that's coming out. And I thought about all the things that he was going through. And, anybody that's a parent will know that you love your kids unconditionally. And I was just having a hard time trying to adjust to that. Marriage, the work life, the stresses that go with, being married and all the things that happen at work. I wasn't in the right place, and kind of got away from God. I always believed in God, but I wasn't the right person at that moment. And after I call it an accident. People say, well, it wasn't an accident. To me, it was, or an incident. It changed my life because it opened up my eyes and my heart to something that I didn't even think I could do.
Nice. Thank you.
Yeah. So walk us through that evening. You were working off duty in uniform, providing security for a discotheque, which isn't uncommon. But was it a normal night up until that point for you? What was the atmosphere like?
Friends, if what we're discussing today, the 5 domains of cutting edge human development, sounds interesting to you and you want to experience it for yourself, a great place to start is the Unbeatable Challenge. You can try it for free now. There's a link in the show notes, and it's a great way to really jumpstart your 5 domain training and become really clear on your goals for this year and how to crush them. We did this challenge earlier this year, and it was a great way to find clarity and redefine our mission, our purpose. And Casey and I also used it as an alignment piece in our marriage to make sure that we were on the same page. So the link is in the show notes. You can try it for free now. Don't wait. Don't hesitate. Take action.
Well, I don't really recollect a lot because I had a traumatic brain injury. So the story that was told to me, had to be told. I only remember that it happened. I was covering somebody. So for the people that don't understand, off-duty jobs, officers, most police officers, they supplement their income by working extra at different facilities. So for instance, like I work for the Dallas Mavericks here in Dallas. I provide security for them. And the location that I was at, it's just an additional job that we would provide for security. So there was 3 officers working, and usually I don't work on Sundays, and Sundays is the deadest night to work at that club. But they were having a party for the Dallas Cowboys because they were playing the Sunday night game against the Giants, and that's pretty much all I remember. And that I was filling in for another officer. So I had worked at that club for numerous years, 5+ years. I've never had any trouble. You get the common public intoxication, and that's about it. Some disturbances, but for the most part, there's no problems there. Our job as officers is to always, de-escalate the situation with the people fighting, and just make sure that everybody's okay and they go home on their way. So
walk us through the incident, if you don't mind.
So I was told that we have some radios. When there's a disturbance inside the club, they would call us on the radio saying, hey, we're escorting somebody out. Again, we don't know why they're escorting somebody out. It's because they didn't pay their bill, they were fighting, who knows? So they call us to dorm number 3. So me and the other 2 officers approach the door, and as we're approaching it, they're escorting 4 or 5 gentlemen out, and they were upset because they were getting kicked out. And again, we're trying to just de-escalate the situation. So we asked a couple of guys, hey, it's time to go. It was early into the night. It wasn't past midnight. I think it was about 10 o'clock. The game hadn't even been over yet. And some of the guys said, well, we're parked in the back. So since there were more of them, two of the officers followed him to make sure that they'd left the property. And the guy that was left there by alone, I had asked him where he was parked, and they told me that he had parked in valet. So I said, okay, it's time to get your car and you got to go. So, as officers, they always, even if we're off duty, you're trained to do the things that you're on duty, is protect yourself and others. So, and that's what I was doing. I stood in a location, a lot of people says, why did you stand in front of the car? I was not standing in front of the car. I positioned myself on the side of the car, which I was about, I would say 10 feet away. So I'm facing, if you imagine a car, you're facing it sideways. I'm facing the rear passenger door where the driver sits. So when they bring him the car, in case he has a weapon in the car, I can react and do what I need to do. So when they drive up the car towards him, he gets in the driver's vehicle and he closes the door. So I was assuming that he's going to drive off. So I'm just standing on the curb. The next thing he does is he backs up. And in my mind, I think, well, it wasn't unusual for people to back up because it's a roundabout. So I'm thinking to myself, well, he's in an SUV. He's probably going to go pick up his friends. So as he backs up, he turns the wheels, but he doesn't turn them in the direction that I think he's going to turn them, like all the way. And as soon as he turned them to me, I already kind of knew what was going to happen. So there's a wall behind me. And I told myself, you only have less than a split second react, that I have to jump as high as I can. I knew I was going to get hit regardless. And that's when that CrossFit takes place, where you're doing all these jumps and all that. So, I thought I could jump as high as I could. Obviously I couldn't. And the vehicle hit my legs and it flipped me, and my head slammed against the windshield, causing me traumatic brain injury and my skull to crack. I then fell off to the side of the driver's side, and then he put it in reverse and then ran over my left side of the body and then put it in drive, and he peeled out on my right leg. So I sustained numerous injuries from a traumatic brain injury, where I regressed in my memory. I regressed to a 4th grade education level. What else? I had a cranial fracture. My face was scalped from the cheekbone all the way to the back. Partially blind on my right eye. I lost most of my teeth. A broken nose, broken jaw, severed tongue. My left ear was pretty much detached from my head. A broken neck, a broken back, broken ribs, left collapsed lung. My left leg was completely dislocated from its hip, and my right leg was pretty much mangled. They managed to save my right leg, but I have it fused now. So, those are my injuries. So
quite extensive, life changing, life altering. Oh, you almost didn't make it, right?
Right. So I was told that I had passed away between 5 and 8 minutes. So, I don't remember any of those injuries. I don't remember getting hit by a car. But what I will tell you, this is what I do remember. And I'd like to share this with you and your audience, that, I told you earlier that I'm a firm believer in God. Well, I will tell you, and this is my opinion, that at your moment of death, and I was at your moment of death, that this is how much God loves us, is that he's not going to let you feel any pain. I don't remember feeling any pain whatsoever. And you heard my injuries. People say, oh, it was the adrenaline. Well, you call it whatever you want to call it, but I don't remember feeling any pain. And they asked me why, and I said, well, because God died for us, and that's my belief. Mm-hmm. The other thing I remember is I remember lying face down, and I actually thought I got shot in the head. I didn't realize I was hit by a vehicle. I knew something bad happened, but I didn't know what had happened. And I could only see out of my left eye, and I could only move my right hand because I was paralyzed. And I touched my head with my right hand, and I could feel like my brain, and it felt like a broken hard boiled egg. And I was like, and that's why I thought I got shot in the head. And I was like, oh, this is not good. Well, one of the things that they teach you in the academy is you never tap out. You never give up. No matter if you're losing the fight, you never give up. And that's the only thing that crossed my mind. I was like, I can't give up. I could hear people yelling and screaming. And I knew ambulances were coming because I could hear the sirens. So as that's all going on, the next thing I feel is I feel my life and soul leaving my body. So I know I'm dying because I'm bleeding out, right? Because you bleed a lot from the head. So as I'm lying there in a pool of blood, I then feel my life and soul leaving my body, and I see my whole life story. I see my family and friends, my brother and sister, and my mom and dad, and all my loved ones, and anybody who had come into my life. It was just, it was a repeat of me growing up to the present date. And it was so awesome to see because I touched on memories that I had completely forgot about. So as I'm lying there, the next thing that happens is I see my father, and I say that because it had been about 8 years since my dad was dead. And I was very close to my father, and I was there when he passed away. But one of the things that hurt me the most when my father passed away was I couldn't dream about him. And I say that because those who dream, they know that dreams are like reality. And all the adventures and trips that my brother and I did with my father, I couldn't remember. As hard as I tried after he passed away, thinking about, hey, I wish I remember us going camping. I just couldn't. And I was mad. I was angry at God, for not giving me that opportunity to dream about my dad. But time heals, and now we're in the present, and I'm, face down. And now I see my father in front of me, just the way I remember him. And he looks down at me and he tells me, son, get up. And I kind of look up with that one eye and I said, Dad, I cannot get up. And he does what any father would do. He bends down, puts his cap back, puts his hands on his knees, and he tells me, boy, I need you to get up because you have a family that loves you and needs you, and you have friends that love you and need you. Please stand up for me, son. And again, I'm not preaching my faith. He stood up to let somebody by, and Jesus Christ stood right next to my dad. And he didn't say anything, and I knew it was him. And I just remember his eyes and his face. And then the next thing I remember is I took like a deep breath of air, and I felt my life and soul re-enter my body. And I remember waking up in the ambulance.
That's just a powerful story. Thank you for sharing. If you've been listening to our podcast or following us on socials, it's probably no surprise to you that I've been dealing with back issues for many years. And I want to take a moment just to tell you about something that I've found that's helped me with my flexibility and durability and mobility. And that's called Kokoro Yoga, somatic warrior training. It's not just yoga. It also includes Tai Chi, Qigong, visualization, meditation, and breathwork practices such as Fit Warrior, Fighting Warrior, which incorporates functional fitness and some martial arts movements. And it's been just a really great way for me to maintain some flexibility and durability as I move through our challenges when we go and do Spartan races and climb mountains. So if this sounds like it's something that could help you out, check it out. The link's in the show notes. Just so everybody has an idea here, this whole thing happened in just a matter of seconds. The incident happened in a matter of seconds, and probably not all that many minutes passed before the ambulance came to get you. So time kind of slowed down and compressed and slowed down a little bit for you, it sounds like. So all of this has happened, and you're not even at the hospital yet. Were you aware of what was going on around you while you were being transported in the ambulance?
And you see, this is where it picks up. Now I do, because now I remember I'm in the ambulance, but I couldn't talk. I remember there was the oxygen mask on me because my face is completely, torn up, and my tongue and my jaw were broken. So I couldn't talk, but I could. It's amazing how your other senses, they're just. I was like Spider-Man. I could hear everything, and I could hear what the medics were saying, like, hey, his vitals are going down. And I will tell you this, another thing that I felt, and I want to share this with your audience, at your moment of death, and again, in my opinion, this is what you think about. You don't think about money. You don't think about what you drive, what you do. You think about your family and how you live your life. That's what I thought about. I consider myself a good person. I mean, I'm not perfect by all means. I have my faults, but I thought about my family and how I live my life. And did I do enough to go to heaven? And I think I did, but there was some regrets of things that I wish I could have done in life better. Maybe said sorry or forgave others. And that leads me to the next story. I told you earlier that I knew I wasn't in the best condition. I didn't know I was going to make it or not. And the only thing I thought about was speaking with a priest. So as I'm lying there, just motionless on my way to the hospital, I thought about how am I going to get my last blessings for a priest? And beknownst, and this kind of comes back to my father. My dad believed in a saint, and that saint, I didn't know that he believed in him. He showed up at the hospital, and however I communicated by spirit, tongue, whatever you want to call it, I had asked him prior to me dying if he could bless me, but I needed him to do me a favor and ask him that to tell the persons who had done this to me that I had forgiven them. So before I die, I wanted to tell the guy, it's okay, I forgive you. And I believe that's another reason that my life was spared, that I didn't think about anything else other than it's going to be okay. I'm good with it.
Wow. Yeah. So here you are, you're in the ER. And as I understand it, the suspect, the person who did this, is also in the ER because he actually sustained some gunshots from the officers that were there working with you.
Yeah, sure.
And so here's this guy. You can hear him, maybe other people can hear him, complaining that he's handcuffed, as I understand it. And so this guy just tried to kill you. And one of your first thoughts is, I forgive him. To me, that is so powerful and something that I would hope that I could muster if I ever found myself in that situation. Just amazing. I guess my question is to, and you kind of touched on it, but what was that? How did that come to you? Was it just something that just popped into your mind? Was it something that was spoken to you through God?
No, it's just something, I always, you think about just when I was lying there, that was not the way that I thought I was going to pass away. I always thought that I'd be with my family and friends and be able to say my goodbyes. And yeah, I might have said goodbye that night to my wife, and I did, but it wasn't one of those like, okay, I'll see you in the afterlife. And it was just at that moment, that's what my heart felt and my mind. And I was raised by Christian faiths, and again, in my whole life, it was, I don't have a lot of hate for people. I might not like you, but I'm not going to hate you. People say, well, I would hate this guy for this. Well, I think about, what, he's a brother of somebody, he's the son of somebody, he's a friend of somebody, and in my mind, I don't even know this guy. And what he did, he might have done it out of frustration about what happened. I don't know his reasoning, and I'll never know. But in order to get over what I went through, I have to get over forgiving him first, because that's the hardest thing to do, is forgive something and then move on, because your heart will eat at you for, if you hate somebody. So it's just better just get it over with and be done with it.
Yeah, 100%, right? Carrying that with you, that burden with you is just draining. So did you actually have the opportunity at some point to actually go and tell him that you forgave him?
Well, it was several years later at his trial, because we get to do an impact statement, and he can't respond or anything. And, I that was the first time I saw him. And, I told him, I told him, I can't even remember his name, like Jorge, I believe his name. But anyways, I told him that, you had knocked me down once, twice, and even the third time, you still couldn't knock me down. And now I'm standing in front of you. And I just told him that I forgive you. And I said, you need to find God in your life. And I hope you just repent and you make the best of what you have. And whenever you get out, you just try to be the best person you can. And that's it. So
Wonderful. So you touched on, your wife, and you said goodbye to her. As we do, when we leave for the day. How did she find out about this incident?
Well, typically when an officer is injured, killed in the line of duty, the supervisors go to the residence. And of course, this happened late at night, when they knocked on her door. And she tells this story that she had just put on I guess a mask or something like that to sleep with. I don't know, for her face, I don't know, to make a youth mask, whatever you call it. And yeah, it's kind of funny. And then she goes, and she thought about it that night. She was going to do it, the treatment. And she goes, nah, I better not. Something's, and she didn't. But yeah, I got a great wife. My wife her name is Marcella. She's, I can't say, she's just awesome. I gotta share this little story with you. I don't know if I shared the story with you when we were walking, but anybody that knows her will tell you that she's a very strong-willed person. My wife's not a crybaby. She's not one of these that, oh my God, and gets emotional. And I'm sure she was emotional in her private moments, but she doesn't let me or anybody else, know that she's hurting. So once they brought her into the hospital, the doctor says, look, he's going to live, but we don't know how bad his brain injury is because, my head was the size of a watermelon. He goes, and we only have so much time to put his face back together because of the nerve endings and so and so. And the head trauma doctor asked her, do you have a current picture of your husband? So the plastic surgeons can see what he looks like. So my wife takes out her phone and scrolls through some pictures, and she shows him a picture of Brad Pitt. So the doctors look at her, they look at me, and they're like, well, we're gonna try, but no, she goes, I'm just joking. This is a real picture of him. So they knew at that moment that my wife was gonna be okay. And so
Oh,
yeah,
wonderful.
but, she's awesome.
So it sounds pretty obvious, but was your wife as forgiving as you were, the gentleman?
Yeah, I mean, my wife is kind of, she's not really as like me, people person. She kind of keeps to herself, but she kind of told me, she goes, hey, because we had talked about all the struggles that I was going through. And she told me it took after the fact, after months of recovery, I shared that story with her, what I just told you. And she says, things happen. And it's unfortunate that a vehicle had to hit you for you to realize all the things that you were doing to open up your eyes and your heart and all that. And she doesn't blame that guy or nothing, but it just, it's one of those things that, I'm glad that you're okay and that you're able to forgive him and do the things that you're able to do now. So.
Wow. Pretty stand-up lady right there. So talking about your recovery process, so it was 19 months and many surgeries. What kept you going?
Oh man, I just I look back and I think, and I said, man, where I've come back from, it's just amazing what medicine can do. And yeah, so when I was in the hospital at Parkland for about a month and a half, and then they moved me across the street, which was Zale Lipsky, and that's where I kind of started my initial physical therapy, where I had to transition from a wheelchair to the bathroom, and just kind of those little things, because I couldn't walk for 10 months. I didn't have that stability, and then not having my mind was not connecting to my limbs. So I just couldn't do the things I wanted to do. I could say them, I just couldn't do them. And so I needed intensive physical therapy. So they found there's a location, and I got to brag about them. They're called Center for Neural Skills, and it's short for CNS. And they're the ones who are the Cadillac of who actually put me together. I went to extensive physical therapy, occupational therapy, education, memory, psychological assistance, counseling. And everything that all the patients that we had in common were a traumatic brain injury. And that's what they specialize in. There's from minimal to medium to where there's people that are in vegetative states. And they all come in different forms, where maybe it was a car accident or somebody just bumping their head. I was very fortunate because I could actually talk. I couldn't walk, but I could talk. And, I could express myself, but again, I couldn't put two and two together. Simple things like opening a bottle of water. I knew what it was. I didn't know how to open a bottle of water. They had to train me how to do that, and just kind of started all over again, reading. And it was a long process. And I actually had to go back 2 years later because I started forgetting things. But what was going on is I had veered off from doing the things that they asked me to do. Like now I have to have notes. I have to keep like those little sticky pads, like reminders. I have to do that on my phone, the calendar. So they teach you tricks. Sometimes when I'm speaking, I might want to say a word, but I can't remember what the word is. So they ask you choose a different word. So, but yeah, it's just amazing what they can do. And I was very fortunate to help them out. They did they opened a brand new facility here in the Texas area. And I was able to, they asked me to be a guest to open it up, do a ribbon cutting ceremony. So I was very fortunate to meet the president and all that. So I'm very grateful for CNS.
Wonderful. That's so you've got this long rehab process. And the one thing I keep hearing you say through this entire process is, or our conversation is, forgiveness and gratitude, right? Two big things to keep us in a positive state moving forward, letting go of negative. So you've gone through the rehab process and you go back to work. So my question, I guess, is why did you go back to work, even though you probably could have retired with full disability? This episode of Fierce Planet Adventures podcast is brought to you by 5 Mountain Coaching, licensed Unbeatable Mind Coaching, integrated accelerated vertical growth across 5 domains of cutting-edge development, designed by retired Navy SEAL Commander Mark Devine. Learn the Big 4 skills of mental toughness and resiliency. Discover the 6 pillars of performance. Test your mettle with custom-created crucibles across all 5 domains. Visit 5mountaincoaching.com to schedule your free 1-hour Unbeatable Mind Coaching session. That's the number 5, mountaincoaching.com. Begin your journey to becoming unbeatable today.
Right. Just, I've always been an active person. My wife told me that they were trying to, I had to prove that I can actually come back to the apartment. I actually had to have a physical therapist go with me to work and analyze if I was doing what I needed to do. So I was a detective at that time. And then my boss, my supervisor, had to do the same, make sure that I was able to comprehend, the police language and investigate the cases. And of course, they just didn't throw me into the wall. They started me off slow. Okay, this is that, trying to, because you got to get that brain firing again to remember the things. And eventually I did. But I was just too young also to retire, and I wasn't going to give up. I've never been that type that I'm just going to lie down and just, settle. And I had to prove to myself. So when anybody ever tells me, hey, you can't do this, I make sure, look, I can do it. Trust me. So yeah, I'm just always been that type of person. And one of the other things I wanted to share with your audience that I forgot to mention, after when I'm lying there in the ambulance, I was thinking, the moral of that story I was telling people was just try to be the best person you can, help as many people as you can. You don't have to give money just by opening the door or like you mentioned actually what you said, gratitude, just thanking people. You don't hear that often anymore, or saying you're welcome, or just the simple acts of kindness, that goes a long way because you don't know what type of person that individual's having, and that can help them out throughout the day. So
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Is, taking perspective, or trying to take the perspective of someone else, and acknowledging that whatever they're going through in that moment is, could be pretty bad for them, and how they're showing up for you right now may not be representative of who they are. So showing a little bit of kindness can go a long way for sure. What you went through was traumatic. Um, has that trauma impacted your life in other ways since the incident? And how have you dealt with
yeah,
that?
so when I was recovering, I was still in my recovery. I would go to work half a day and then therapy half a day. So that's how they would help me out, to try to adjust to life again. I started volunteering, helping out with the assist the officer. So the following year, I got injured in 2015. The following year, we had a traumatic event here in downtown Dallas where 5 police officers were killed all in one moment. And so when that happened, I mean, I went down to the office and just started helping with phone calls. I mean, I couldn't do much. I wasn't in cane. I mean, there was limited things that I could do, but it was something. And, I felt good helping out. And then that's when I started getting a little bit more involved. I've always been involved volunteering, at the church when my son was going to catechism and doing all those things. But this was something different from the department. And I just kind of got, hooked on it, like, because they were there when I was injured, assist the officer. And my wife always told me, I'll never forget, they're a class act. They got their things together. And if you ever have an opportunity, you need to help them out. So the opportunity came, and that's how I got involved.
Yeah. Can you tell us more about the foundation Assist the Officer? Because I think that's a real powerful story to tell as well, and what their mission is.
Yeah, so in 1999, since the officer started, there was a Dallas police officer who was critically injured. He was paralyzed. He was actually shot, David Rodriguez, and him and some of the officers started this nonprofit foundation to assist. It was just at that time Dallas police officers, because for anybody that works in government job, once you're injured, either the state or federal, they can only help so much. You still have a house payment, you still have cars, you still have all the other bills that all of us have. And so they started doing fundraisers like golf outings to raise money for that officer to help them get through whatever critical injury they were going through. So as the years go by, it started getting their names started going out there in Dallas. And we're fortunate in the Dallas Metroplex that there's a lot of donors that want to donate to first responders. So within the years, it just started growing, and before you know it, we have a lot of support here in Dallas, and we started having different fundraisers. Well, we expanded it to the fire department, where Assist the Officer would help the fire department, and then it grew more. So now, currently, I'm the chairman for Assist the Officer. I started off as a board member, an advisory board member. The president asked me at the time if I could be a board member. And then 2.5 years ago, I took over. He stepped down and asked me if I wanted to be the chairman for the association. And I was like, for sure, there's nothing to think about. So I'm the chairman now. So we help out all first responders. You don't have to be just Dallas Police. We've helped officers as far as Lubbock. There's one in particular that I want to talk about, that how far our name goes. There's another nonprofit foundation that's based out of California, and they reached out to us, called Love Your Cops, that there was a police officer in a northern county that got injured in 2018, where he was critically injured and shot in the head. Well, he was left for dead and he was paralyzed, and he couldn't get any assistance whatsoever because that department in Denton had never suffered an officer that critically injured. And they were basically going to fire him. He couldn't come back to work. Okay, well, you're gone. Well, that wasn't right. So we did what we had to do, talk to legislators and attorneys. We were able to raise money. We were able to get him a van, a disability van, and equip that with, wheelchair ramp. We were able to get him a service dog. So he has a dog now. And just help him along the way, him and his family. He's got 2 little kids. His name is Urban Rodriguez. But yeah, I mean, it's just the officer. We just don't help Dallas Police. We help out so many people. And we have from officers that their houses burned down. And, we step in immediately and try to write a check. And one of the things that we're known for is that we provide free counseling for officers and their families. So if you have issues, and it doesn't have to be work related, it can be whatever it is, you can go see one of our assist the officer counselors, and they're all certified psychologists, and talk to somebody. And the reason we have that is to prevent suicide, because we know that's big for law enforcement. And we just wanted to make sure, we want to save some lives. And, I've spoken with a psychologist. I had to speak with a psychologist when I was going through my injuries, because that ran across my head. Like, why do I have to get another surgery? If I can end it now, if I take all this medicine, my wife can get the life insurance. She doesn't have to worry about me taking me to the doctor, doing all this. And, I look back now and I said, I'm kind of glad that I went through what I went through, because it opened up what I needed to do to help other officers. So, assist the officer it's awesome. And, I want to thank you guys, because you guys are spreading news about what we do. 10 years ago, how I met you, we talked earlier about Carry the Load. Assist the Officer has been with Carry the Load since the beginning for 10 years. And we're very proud to be one of their partners in this. And I already had talked to you about it, but Carry the Load did something for me that I was looking for the answer, and I finally found it. So there was a leg that I had to do, and it was like early in the morning. It's like 5 a.m. And I was by myself. And you know what it is about carrying that flag and carrying that ruck, and a GPS. So there was one day, I don't know where I was at, and I was just walking, and I was by myself on a country road. And I was, when you're by yourself, you do a lot of reflecting. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm a big old baby. I started crying. I was thinking, why did God spare my life? And I could not find my purpose. I could not find my purpose. To this day, I told people, I didn't know what I was doing. From the time that I got hurt to that moment, I had been doing it. My purpose is service, is to help other people. And I finally realized that while I'm, 5 o'clock in the morning, carrying that flag, saying, you know what, I've been doing God's work. I'm helping people. I'm already doing it. And I want to thank Carry the Load for helping me open, realizing that. So
amazing. It gives me chills when you tell me that story. It did the first time, and it still does. Boy, so much. And we're going to have a link to Assist the Officer in our show notes as well. So people can check it out there and help out as they can.
I think you may have touched on it a little bit, but you spoke about how the incident opened you up. You were able to feel emotions you never knew you had, and made you have an understanding. I was just wondering, what was that understanding that you came to?
Just an understanding of hope, and that it can't be that bad. Life is not bad. I mean, we're all blessed with what we have. Some have more than others. I definitely have to work for the things that we have, but that's just part of life. I mean, struggles, I tell people all the time, if you don't have any struggles in life or any pain, something's going on, because you're gonna make more mistakes than anything. And that's where you learn from your mistakes and your struggles in life, and you become a better person. And I know I certainly have. And I'm very grateful for the things that I have, but yeah, I think that all of us need to have struggles in life in order to be a better person and appreciate the things that we have.
What are you doing now? You're still with the Dallas PD. You're the chairman of Assist the Officer Foundation, but you're also really active. I mean, what is it? What's your number up to now? You've got over 50 triathlons, marathons, and road race events under your belt. What's next for you?
Well, yeah. So during my recovery, after I got all these accolades from different people, and from back home, there was Amy is her name, a good friend of mine. She was battling breast cancer, and she was all inspired to get better. And she told me she was a triathlete, and she had asked me if I ever had done a triathlon, and I knew what they were about. I just didn't know how in depth they were and how much time it takes to train. And the only thing at that time I could only do was swim, because that was part of my therapy. And I couldn't run at all. Do some biking, but not as much. And so when I got better, she had told me if I get better, would you do a triathlon with me? I said, sure. So when she reached out, she goes, okay, I want to do an Ironman. I'm like, what? And I knew what those were about. She goes, you got 1.5 years to train. So I said, okay, well, send me your registration so I know you're serious, because those things are pretty expensive. So she did, and now I got to do it. So I started looking into it. I had a Walmart bike. The only training I ever did was in a pool. So I had to learn that, I had to join a club, I had to get a better bike and apply myself. And ever since then, I fell in love with the sport. It keeps me in check. I try to do one race a month. If it's not a triathlon, it's a run. A couple of weeks ago, we did the Spartan race at Texas Stadium where the Dallas Cowboys play.
Nice.
Did a triathlon 2 weeks ago. And last week, I climbed the highest peak in Texas, the Guadalupe Peak, with a friend of mine. So I just try to stay active as much as I can. And, like what the doctor says, if it wasn't for your physical activity, you would not be here. And I still have some nerve damage in my face that I can't feel in my leg. But he says, the more you move, the more blood comes into those nerves, and the sooner that'll heal. So that's why I do it.
Nice. I love it. So what would you like other first responders, or in fact, anybody who's experienced a brutal assault, to know? What's your biggest takeaway here from that incident that you'd like to share with other first responders?
Hope and never give up. And it could always be worse. Family, and then lead with love.
Amazing.
Ed, powerful information.
Yeah. Where can our listeners find out more about you?
I mean, they can just Google me, Ed Lujan, Lujan. And they can always reach out to Assist the Officer. We have an active account. It's atodallas.org. We also have a Facebook account, a Twitter account. It's all ATO Dallas. And then just recently, we just started a podcast. It's ATO Bridging. So that's gonna be taking off soon. And really excited about that. We're gonna actually, it's not just gonna be officers, it's gonna be an array of different guests come on to talk about them and what they do. We're bringing on one of the therapists that actually helped me. So she's going to talk about what brain TBI is, traumatic brain injury, and how she's helped numerous officers. So yeah, just really excited. brought some new programs to assist the officers. Equine therapy, that involves horses, also with dogs, service dogs, and then several new ATO therapists, because there's a need for that, especially in what's going on in today's world. I believe officers and all first responders should have some way of talking to somebody if they need to.
Absolutely. And I think that's a very important message to share and to send, is we have to let go as a society and as a warrior mindset of not talking to people, to stuff it down inside of us and not share it. And I think we need to really let go of that stigma around there. And, the analogy I like to use is, we have coaches, personal trainers and coaches in the gym. We have business coaches, we have life coaches. We need emotional coaches too, to help us get through and release that negative and that trauma so we can live our best life.
Yes, sir, I agree.
Ed, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to tell your story and to share this message of hope and resilience and to be a guide for others. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Friends, if you found the Fierce Planet Adventures podcast helpful, please consider leaving a 5-star review on iTunes or your podcast platform of choice. It helps others find our podcast.
If you screenshot your review and tag us on Instagram, we'll send you a classic Fierce Planet Adventures sticker. For your water bottle, cooler, car, send us a direct message with your mailing address on Instagram, and we'll send you that sticker right out.
Thanks for joining us, and live fiercely.